Okay. Good afternoon to everybody. As usual, Friday 3 to 4 program of AP State Council of Higher Education in introducing the new book series to the students of Andhra Pradesh, especially both Telugu and English literature works, which were acclaimed by the as well international national levels, are being reviewed by the experts in that particular field. This program was initiated for 2.5 years back by Professor K. Hemchandra Reddy Garu, Chairman AP State Council of Higher Education, to see that any of the student who is interested in reading books has to come into the fold of a regular habit of going through the books, because they are very busy with their regular academic textbook and other activities. So they are also tech savvy. So the AP State Council of Higher Education has introduced this YouTube channel, Talk the Book, APSHE Talk the Book channel, only to have the book reviews, Telugu as well as in English. Today we have our 142nd episode of the Talk the book review. The book that is being reviewed is The Namesake by JHUMPA Lahiri. Lahiri, we can call it as. The reviewer is none other than Dr. MD Sabirunnisa Gouse. Regarding the introduction of the reviewer, Dr. MD Sabirunnisa Gouse from Visakhapatnam is working as assistant professor in ANITS, Anil Neerkonda Institute of Technology and Science Engineering College, with 16 years of experience in teaching. Dr. Sabirunnisa is specialized in teaching technocrats the soft skills and communication skills that are crucial for the learner's career advancement. She received her PhD from Andhra University, and her research areas are diaspora studies. She has published various articles in national and international journals on her research subject matter. The International Institute of Organized Research, a registered MSME with the Minister of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Government of India, has awarded her the National Eminent Young Researcher Award in 2020 for her advocacy of academic and research program at API and the Career Advancement Scheme. As a passionate teacher, she believes in creating an environment of support, togetherness, and positivity among her students that drives motivation, productivity in studies in students to offer them their best in life. So our reviewer is going to review the book, The Namesake, written by JHUMPA Lahiri. I leave it to you, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. Extremely humbled. My greetings to everyone watching me. At the outset, I'd like to thank Team APSHE, especially the chairman, Professor Hemchandra Reddy, sir, and Professor Bhaskar, sir, for providing this platform to share my reading experience of the novel, The Namesake. Well, I would also like to express my gratitude to my head of the department, English, Dr. Fanikumari Madam, for suggesting me this forum. So the novel I have chosen for today's session is The Namesake, which is written by JHUMPA Lahiri. JHUMPA Lahiri is a writer, an Indian-American writer of diaspora, and she was born on July 11th, 1967 to an immigrant couple who migrated to UK from Kolkata. And Lahiri's father, a university librarian, chose to move to US for work in Rhode Island. And then later, Lahiri attended Barnard College in New York, studying on English literature. She then joined the student body of Boston University, earning 3 literary master's degree before obtaining her doctorate in Renaissance studies. As a novelist, one can see that her characters, they mostly focus on the portrayal of Indian immigrants in America who feel torn between two different cultural influences and trying to find a way to fit in. And this concept actually has a universal appeal. Well, The Namesake is the debut novel of JHUMPA Lahiri, and the novel examines the intricacies involved in being caught between two conflicting cultures with ideological differences. So, this novel has earned a worldwide critical acclaim, and the The same novel with the same title, Namesake, has been made into film by Meera Nair, starring Irfan Khan and Tabu, which was released in 2006. The New York Times has praised Lahiri as a writer of uncommon elegance and poise for this novel. Well, The Namesake is also a novel of what it means to make and name oneself within a culture, be it an American or otherwise. It is as much as a reflection of author's many cultural and intellectual interests as it is an account of immigrant experience. And the book is really accepting who you are. This is what Lahiri had to say in one of her interview. She further added that there was a time when I felt confusion and when she felt confusion actually, and between the conflicting loyalties between being American and Bengali. But now I think I understand it more. So these are the words by Jhumpa Lahiri in one of the interviews that she has given. Well, I would also like to make a point here regarding diaspora writing. Given that this novel is a work of diaspora writing, it is actually appropriate to discuss diaspora in brief here. A diaspora is basically a vast population of people who left their home country and moved to different parts of the world, yet they shared a common origin. Diasporans confront significant challenges because they live in a dual world, as they can't forget their origin nor fully accept the new place. So, the concept of diaspora recurs frequently in Jhumpa Lahiri's writings, and if this novel, because of the this is the cover page of the book Namesake, and this is the writer Jhumpa Lahiri. Well, to begin with, the story is about a Bengali immigrant family living in the US, and it deals with the lives of Indian expatriate family, as already mentioned, and also their struggles in the unknown land. And the major themes of the book are immigrant experience, cultural clashes, the conflict of assimilation, and also mostly very vividly on generation gap. And what makes the novel even more interesting, as far as my observation and according to my viewpoint, what makes the novel even more interesting is a point that the older generation has its own problems because they need to accustom to the new culture, while the children try to find their own self. So this actually makes the novel very interesting. And the major characters of the novel are the immigrant couple, Ashima Ganguly, Ashok Ganguly, and their son Gogol, who happens to be the major protagonist of this novel. Ashok and Ashima immigrated to US to pursue a better life. So as the novel opens, we see Ashima Ganguly in America. She is a gentle and traditional woman from Kolkata, and she finds it very difficult to adapt to the American way of life because she embodies traditional values and customs of their Bengali heritage despite living in America for many years. The very beginning of the novel, we see Ashima is pregnant with her first child, and she's craving for a Bengali snack, which is very popular in Kolkata, obviously not available in US. So it was not so easy for her because she was surrounded with the homesickness and a kind of anxiety. So we see Ashima as someone who's alienated, isolated, and displaced in an American setting, and she longs for the sense of home. So she constantly tries to draw a comparison between India and America. And this alienation of being a foreigner is compared to a kind of a sort of lifelong pregnancy, as quoted in the novel itself. To become mother in a foreign land is quite difficult for her. And Lahiri beautifully portrays the feelings of Ashima in this foreign land in these lines. I quote the lines in the novel. It says that for being a foreigner, Ashima is beginning to realize is a sort of life pregnancy, a perpetual weight, a constant burden, continuous feeling out of sorts. Like pregnancy, being foreigner, Ashima believes, is something that elicits the same curiosity from strangers, the same combination of pity and respect. So these are the lines given in the novel describing a kind of homesickness, isolation, or alienation of Ashima, and the difficulties that a traditional Indian housewife faces in a foreign land with new people, new language, new culture is excellently portrayed through Ashima's character. So, Ashima's effort to find her feet in a foreign country and understanding a new culture is the struggle of every immigrant to expose their self identity in an alien land. So, besides the emotional state of dislocation and alienation, is found in all the activities and actions the characters basically perform. So, Ashima was raised in a traditional manner in Bengali family and has a strong connection with her culture. So this makes it difficult for her to raise a child in an alien land because it involves process of promoting and supporting the physical, emotional, and social, and I should say the intellectual also, the intellectual development of a child from infancy to childhood, sorry, to adulthood. So it is well known fact that parenting refers to the aspects of raising a child apart from biological birth. So, amid such emotional crisis and nostalgic experiences, she eventually gives birth to a son at one of the American hospitals. So, the naming of son, I mean a child, generally speaking, a child, naming of a child in Bengali tradition, it is actually a solemn affair, a very serious affair. So, the couple don't immediately name him because they are waiting for a letter from Ashima's grandmother who will name the baby. But unfortunately, the letter never arrives. So, for the child to leave the hospital, the birth certificate must have a name on it as per the formalities in the hospital. So, Ashok chooses the name Goggle in haste. Goggle, Gogol is the Goggle as a name given there already in haste because Nikolai Gogol is his favorite writer. Nikolai Gogol is a Russian writer and he happens to be the favorite writer of Ashok. So for that reason, the child was given this name. And the child's name Gogol was actually chosen by Ashok for a purpose because it has a sentimental reason. It's there's a short incident that actually provoked Ashok to give this name to his child. And the incident is something like this because for Ashok, Gogol was his rescuer because it was a section of Gogol's writing that he was reading when a dreadful train accident took place. He actually survived a train accident, and it was the book and the few pages that he was holding in his hands that saved him from the accident. Like people around him were dead, and even he was more or less left behind by the rescue team. And until they saw the pages of book that he was reading, he was holding by hand, and he just crumbled one of the page. So by luck, he was saved by a book written by Gogol, the famous Russian writer. So for that reason, with this sentimental reason, Ashok names his son as Goggle. So hence the son is legally given the pet name Goggle, and Goggle, the major character of this novel, ends up with a name which is neither Bengali nor American. So the major part of the novel revolves around the identity crisis, identity issues that Goggle faces due to his weird name, and also not just the name but intergenerational conflicts that arises with his parents. So as Gogol grows older, he becomes increasingly aware of the cultural gap between his parents, between Indian heritage and also American surroundings. So he tries to fit in with his American peers. However, he also feels disconnected from Indian community, and Gogol's struggle with identity intensifies during his college years when he decides to legally change his name to Nikhil. So Nikolai Gogol, who is regarded as the main inspiration in development of 19th century Russian realism, inspires Gogol to name his firstborn as Gogol, as already mentioned earlier. And Gogol grows with grows up with this name that seems to him like standing parents have given him, and tries to become somewhat different because he would rather redefine himself as someone who was born and raised in US than someone who can be identified with his uh, Bengali parents' immigrant heritage. So, apart from that, cultural influence is also one of the strong factor contributing to Gogol's identity crisis. So, the question of identity is a complicated concern for the second generation of diaspora, because at home Indian cultural values were, while in public domain the American code of behavior is followed. So Ashima and Ashok try hard to keep hold of their Indianness, their culture, despite surrounded by American culture. They go at the Kathakali dance performance or sitar recital as memorial hall. Like when Gogol was in third grade, they sent him to Bengali language cultural classes every other day, every Saturday, basically held in the home of one of their friends. So they just wanted to preserve their Indian heritage and culture because they don't want their children to come out of it. Because that would rather become very difficult for Ashok and Ashima to hold on to that. So they want their children to follow, abide by the Indian cultural norms. And then again, we also see that the second generation immigrants, they're not attached to their cultural past because it is easier to accept America's hybrid culture because they are into the society, living with the friends, will live with the peer pressure or whatever the cultural factors come across. For them, American hybrid culture is really easy for them to adapt to. So he doesn't see himself as an outsider living in a foreign land because he has his people, in a sense, his own friends with him. So he doesn't feel like an outsider, however. So he wants to be seen as an American, and he often wonders how he can actually fit in with his American friends with strange name like Gogol. So this has always been a major concern for Gogol, and for that reason he disliked the name to the core because people asked him what his name means and he had no answer for it, and he even doesn't want to acknowledge that his father has named him after the train incident, which he's actually not aware of by that point of time. So he doesn't want to acknowledge the name as Gogol because to him it is just meaningless and it doesn't make any sense to him. So, in a way, Google is a hybrid since his mixture of American and Indian culture. His parents want the Indian version of his personality, but he wants the American one. So, the confusion about Gogol's identity is divided between his family's Indian heritage and his own desire for modern and independent American lifestyle. And then again, Gogol struggled to bridge generational gaps as a result of balancing his American and Indian identities throughout his teenage years and adulthood. In general, there are various ways in which immigrant parents and their kids, are separated because shifting cultures, external assimilation factors on both sides are to be blamed for this. Immigrant parents appreciate the morals and values of their homeland, but for the children, they have adopted these values from within their own community. So the reasons for this gap is because immigrant children take on new identities. So this is true for all the people, but it is especially true for immigrant children whose identities are more influenced by the balancing act between two very different cultures. So Ashima and Ashok are separated from their children because they share same Bengali culture that their children are disconnected from. So this is creating a kind of generational gap, generation disparities between the first generation and second generation immigrants in the novel. So as the story goes on, in an unfortunate twist, Ashok, who is father of Gogol, he suffers a heart attack that was unexpected. Incident. So this very tragic incident, that means death of Ashok, father of Gogol, it leaves severe impact. By now, he has greater appreciation for the sacrifices that his parents went through. As a result of Ashok's death, Goguls began taking comfort in Bengali traditions that he had previously felt meaningless to him. Because in some point of time, all this Bengali culture was actually something kind of meaningless, and he hated it to the core. But now it is meaningful for them because earlier in the novel, after his grandparents' death, Gogol had to eat vegetarian diet for 10 days and was irritated by this restriction forced on him by his parents. But now, as he laments his father, he finds himself understanding and appreciating the Bengali practice of avoiding non vegetarian during mourning. So, even though he used to hate Bengali ceremonies as a child, he now takes part in Hindu religious ceremony. So now he thinks about how scary it must have been for his parents to travel to a foreign country without the support of their families. And he even now appreciates how his parents remained loyal and committed to one another, even in an arranged marriage. So he begins to understand how they supported each other as they lived. He regards them by this point of time. Hence, the death of father brings him back to the Bengali roots. He understands the beauty of their parents' relationship, that their marriage is based on loyalty and commitment. So, after involving into, as the novel progresses, I'd like to tell you some other important things about Gogol's life because that actually decides his personality and character. So, after involving in two serious relationships with non Bengali women, which ends up in breakup, obviously, Gogol marries Maushmi, a Bengali girl, on his mother's suggestion because of their common culture and background. So, but eventually, this ends up in divorce because she begins to have an affair with an old friend of her named Dimitri, who's a German. So Ashima regrets bringing Gogol to meet Moshmi and believes that American culture has negatively impacted Indian moral and ethical standards. So, taking together, these events leave Gogol utterly depressed, but they also lay foundation for Gogol's development, giving him a kind of confidence in the identity he has worked so hard to achieve. So, furthermore, like putting on my analysis, it could be seen that Ashima and Ashok made and found a home in one another based on traditional Indian values and a desire to build a family. But in contrast, Gogol and Maushmi, they searched for love independently while married and were unsatisfied in their marriage, which is why they were isolated even while together. So the author here, Jhumpa Lahiri, has intentionally used the contrast of these two marriages to explain the importance of self-identity. Lahiri's novel, the namesake, a story of identity, generally speaking. So Gogol's struggle with his Bengali and American identity are seen throughout the story, and his relationship with his name and the importance that he attributes to this shows it. So hence, Ashok's death is a logical way for the story to progress because it will force Gogol to come face to face with his past. So in the story, all the major characters at the beginning of the novel, they face a kind of uncertainty, confusion. So this leads to their a kind of insecurity. So, and then gradually, Gogol tries to find his roots, like after this incidents or series of incidents, like depression that he went through after his father's death, and due to his unsuccessful marriage, he tries to acknowledge his dual identity. So this is a very important culmination point in the novel. So cultural shock is a normal element of switching to new culture, and almost everyone who lives overseas feels it, as we've seen in the characters of Ashok and Ashima. All that is important for a person is to develop a kind of support system that may help him achieve the ability to function in a new culture. So, however, in a fullness of time, Ashima, she achieves cultural and geographical fluidity as a result of her way of life through decades. So Ashok's death is a defining moment lives of the characters of the novel, both physically and emotionally. And it is through his absence that Ashima and Gogol cross the threshold and acquire a new and different insight of life, and thereby making a crucial transformations in their life. And in fact, Lahiri pictures the dramatic life adventures of immigrant people and observes how they feel around the world. After Ashok dies, Gogol retains some of his hidden Indian side of identity, and then particularly by taking his mother's guidance to marry Maushmi. And now Ashima not only has to live alone, but also to limit her ways of life to the American side of the family and perform the household responsibilities which was previously taken by Ashok. She decides to divide her life between India and America by living between her roots in India and her family in America. So this has been a very important part of the novel. And then it should also be said, furthermore, for Lahiri as a writer in this novel, she relates the diverse facets of diasporic experience and projects how the characters face double identity along with the conflicting social identities as a part of cultural adaptation, which involves formation of cognitive and emotional links with the new group. And Lahiri's protagonists encompass their consistency of consciousness between two selves, the native and the foreign. Every character faces identity crisis that leads to uncertainty and confusion, wherein their sense of identity becomes insecure, typically due to a change in their expected aims or roles in the society. Because Gogol's and Ashima's life, it takes a turn after death of Ashok, which was actually an unexpected twist in the novel. So it was unbelievable for them, and in due course they have to change the the way how they see lives and the culture or the people around. So they come closer to their Indian origin or Indian roots. So roots are something which you just cannot get away. You just cannot escape from your roots. So it is somewhere always planted in you. So this is the point that Lahiri beautifully tries to project in the namesake. So as the result, the characters time and again feel the tug and pull of different cultures, which we see initially. They find it very difficult to come to terms, different traditions and different dreams. So this makes them feel suspicious and apprehensive towards the new culture in the early years of settlement in the new country. So they, during the initial stages of their settlement, as Shima faced a kind of insecurity, homesickness, nostalgia. So the same is something which commonly seen in the immigrants overseas. And second generation immigrants, they face it even more because they have that legacy, or rather I should call the burden, to fulfill their parents demand and how they value Indian traditions. So that becomes a crucial point in most of the novels written by Lahiri. So their children, who represent the second generation immigrants, feel right in their local country. For them it is everything right, the people that they see around. I mean, they don't find it something really which is unpleasant. For them it is a kind of normal, like talk close with their peers, having fun, party, very common, and they don't see anything wrong in that. So they are, because they also have that burden of holding. At the same time, they need to fit in American culture. So for that reason, they are a part of two different cultures. But in point of fact, not anyone, because half semi-Indian, semi-American. So in a way, it becomes not to anyone, not either of the cultures. So Lahiri explores these ideas of personal and cultural isolations and identities through these relationships. So Jhumpa Lahiri actually, I should tell you, she made use of her own diasporic experience of her own, because her parents in the novel, because she was born in Bengali parents, she was born to Bengali parents and settled down in US. So she is influenced by two cultures, and hence the novel gained global relevance because it is a kind of novel that every second generation immigrant can actually relate to. They can actually empathize with. So for that reason, this is one of the reason why it has become why it has gained a critical acclaim, and it has also gained global relevance. So this novel is a very significant must-read novel for people who have issues with the generational conflicts in people who are living overseas. So it is a must-read, recommended book for every first generation as well as the second generation immigrants typically. So Lahiri did not actually belong to first generation immigrant as a writer, and hence she did not overtly face the challenge or isolation of exile. So she did not overtly face, as I told you, the isolation or exile, because a challenge or a yearning for the lost world. So she did not face that kind of yearning, because for the first generation immigrants, it was mostly seen, it was mostly experienced. But however, by like many other second generation immigrants, she felt intense stress to be loyal to the old world and also to the new one. So that has a kind of dilemma in her, that dual world dilemma, what we call. So in a way, this novel is autobiographical in nature. It has a components of autobiographical element. So as rightly observed by one of the critics, S. Gopi Krishna, so this point of transnationality in novels, he says, I quote the lines here. I'd like to quote the lines here by S. Gopi Krishna, one of the critics of the novel. He says, the namesake is a novel that celebrates the cultural hybridity resulting from globalization and the interconnectedness of the modern world and rethinks conventional immigrants' experience. Lahiri is aware of the existing problem of cultural diversity in multicultural US, and she argues that the struggle to grasp a transnational identity becomes an urgent issue for immigrants in this environment. So these are the lines quoted by S. Gopi Krishna in one of his research papers, where he beautifully tries to draw the much related autobiographical element facts of Jhumpa Lahiri. So, as already mentioned before, it is related to the facets of diasporic experience and the characters facing double identity and the conflicting social identities. All these are very beautifully Indian and American. So every character, in a way, for this they face a kind of identity crisis. And what happens due to this is uncertainty and confusion arises. And this is where it becomes very difficult for them to come out of the dilemma because traditions and different dreams they have, and they feel very apprehensive towards the new culture. And this all happens majorly during the early years of their settlement. So, however, gradually, as we see in the novel, they try to assimilate. They have to assimilate because that's how they can come to terms with each other, both physically and also emotionally. So, Ashok and Ashima, like I already mentioned, they had to face a lot of crisis, and this actually has negatively impacted the second generation immigrant because it was difficult for them to deal with the generation kids. So no matter how much you try to motivate them or try to make them understand the Indian cultural values, they still try to come out of it because mostly the prioritization would be the American society where they want to fit in. So, as I come to the ending of my review, I'd like to share some other important things related to the novels. Like, it is a kind of culmination of my entire analysis and review of the novel. So, I must say that it is not an exaggeration that namesake it facilitates understanding, alienation, and loss of identity related to identity crisis, nostalgia, isolation that strike to diaspora group. So all the major characters at the beginning of the novel, they face a period of uncertainty and confusion, of course, and due to which their sense of identity it becomes very insecure. So Gogol tries to find his roots, his identity, and finally learns the lesson to acknowledge his dual identity. So much of the part of the novel centers on the Gogol's name. That is most the basic part of individual's identity. It shows that how the socio-cultural forces, ethnicity, influence the expatriate characters and brings out anxieties. Not just anxiety, I should also say it brings out a kind of uneasiness, rootlessness, alienation, disconnection in relationship, and identity crisis, and the ultimate assimilation that they have to come to terms with. So, assimilation is also very important when we talk about the characteristic features of diaspora writing. Not only alienation or identity crisis, homesickness, nostalgia, as I have been telling throughout my review, more important factor is assimilation, like how you accept the kind of adaptability. Adaptability is really important. It's not just when you go to overseas or you work there or you settle there. Adaptability, even at every place, it is important. As simple as at your workplace, also, you need to adapt to new people, new culture, and the style, the lifestyle of the people around. So assimilation also is something that we happen to see in the novel. And all these factors are important components of post-colonial diaspora literature that the novel handles. So this has been my review on the namesake. So thank you so much for the opportunity given, sir. Over to you, sir. Sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me, sir? Yours in on unmute. It's in mute, sir. Can you just unmute it?
That's still time, madam.
Yes, sir.
That's still time, madam.
Yes, sir.
Shall I close it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have given the important review regarding the novel. I have given
Okay. Thank you, madam, for presenting one different civilizations and different etiquettes, different cultural conflicting systems, existence within a family, and that was being narrated very effectively by Lahiri madam. So you have given a very good presentation of the book, The Namesake. On behalf of AP State Council of Higher Education, we thank you for presenting a good book for our students. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. Extremely humbled. Thank you.